Thanks so much for staying with our coverage of the City of McAllen. I am Roxanne Ledema, back in the McAllen Cable Network studios with our very own Mayor, Jim Darling. Mayor, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure, Roxanne.
So, not as much of a grand entrance into our studios today as what we've gotten accustomed to in our City of McAllen.
But I did trip coming up the stairs, so
okay.
That was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, that was pretty close. Yeah. Obviously, we're talking about you grabbing not just state, but national headlines. You decided to make another daredevil entrance into your State of the City address. So tell us about that.
Well, I don't know. I think riding in spandex was pretty daredevil, but this was a little easier. But you know, it's for a message. It's always for a message.
Right.
And the message was safe and sound, that our city is a safe city, and there's a lot of reason for that. Congressman Vicente had a press conference the Friday before because he was tired of when people say he's a congressman from McAllen explaining that we're safe because of perceptions. So I'm glad it got national attention, and the message was important, though. We're safe and sound.
That's right. So you rappelled into the McAllen Convention Center, and like I said, it captured a lot of headlines. But again, you did reinforce that message of we're safe and sound. Why did you opt for that theme this year?
Well, it's been affecting us, you know, with the new medical school, trying to recruit physicians and research people and professors and those kind of people who had a perception it's dangerous. And if you're going to come down to a city for your career move, you want to make sure it's a safe city. And so I've had people call me. I've been in meetings where people said my spouse didn't want me to come down even for a meeting because it's dangerous. And so I've been wanting for a year to try to get that message across better than we had. And so I thought it was a great opportunity to stay in the city, and you know, the entrances always get some publicity, and so hopefully it worked. But we're going to keep sending that message and figure out how we're going to do that so that people aren't afraid to come to McAllen, because there's absolutely zero reason to fear that.
So we want to reinforce that message because, I mean, here in McAllen, we know the truth. We're safe. We are not in a war zone. Right. Which is in direct opposition to some of the things that we hear, you know, in national headlines. But we were going to host the Games of Texas, and that was one of the things that came up.
Sure, I had to do letters to the editor. I did some phone interviews up there because they literally were going to have a separate Games of Texas, so they didn't have to come to the Valley. Not because we don't have great people, but they had unreasonable fear for coming down here because of reputation. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where that came from, but I think a lot of rhetoric. I mean, when all the things that are happening in Austin and Washington didn't help and kind of made that even more serious. So it was that kind of worked. When the Games of Texas came, I think we had 7,000. This time we had 11,000. Mm-hmm. So people came down, it was safe. They spread that word a little bit among the athletic community, whatever it is, to come down. So I think it's important we do it. You know, I was a little skeptical because I didn't want to let people think the message being we got a crazy mayor, because we know that. But I mean, the idea was, and I think that worked. I think, you know, getting their attention on police and fire and the great job that they do down here is really outstanding. And it's not just an average. We are one of the safest cities in the United States and Texas, and so we need to put that message out. And what I want to make people do is when they go up north to tell people that. Not just wait for somebody to say, oh, it's dangerous down there. No, I want people to how's everything going to McAllen? The first thing they're saying is, you know, there's a misperception, and talk about and hopefully use some of those statistics to encourage people to believe what's really true, and that's we're safe.
And you mentioned in your address that it's not just a slogan, it's the truth. We have the numbers to back it up. I think, 33 years, and this is the safest, or we've had the best overall crime rate that we've seen in 33 years?
Right, yeah. I mean, those statistics are amazing when you look at some of the cities across the country that have serious problems. You know, you really have to look for trouble to get in trouble in McAllen. You have to look for it, I think. So.
Overall safest city in the state of Texas.
Yes, overall, yeah.
Excellent. Okay, on another note, big check presentation recently to UTRGV. Big deal.
It's the medical school, and the check will go for the research center in McAllen. And so I
love that.
That's important.
Right.
You know, one of the things when they had the medical school, and there was, you know, a pledge of $2 million a year. And I didn't want, with sales tax and just writing a check to them when it wasn't a fully developed medical school, I wondered why. And so I went up to Austin and said, why do you need our money? You got PUF funds. Well, PUF funds can't be used for operation. So I was told if you want to
I
have
didn't know that.
if you want to have a
Okay.
first-tier medical school, you have to have research, and if you want to have research, you have to have money that's sometimes not included in the budget because you don't know what it's going to take to get, say, a top-notch research program down here. That's why you usually recruit a program, and that takes the head of the research with his team, because it's a team approach. So you don't know how many people are in the team, so there's kind of like off-budget money, if you will. And so Chancellor McRaven said, if you want to participate, that's where we need it. And so when I came back, I said, that's what we're going to do. We're just not going to write a check to the university. We want to have some of those programs. And so Dr. Kraus came aboard, and we have the first one. He said, here it is. Here's what we think it's going to cost. It's cervical cancer research. It's important research. And then it's economic development when you take a look at it, because if you hit a home run and do it, you get on the map. Maybe you develop the pharmaceuticals down here or the equipment or whatever it is, or you recruit other research through that. And all those are paying jobs. And if you go to San Antonio, I stood on the first steps of the first building at the medical center.
Right.
And every project has to have the first building, right? And that's what we have. And so if you have that vision of saying this is what it could be like, but you have to participate as in our area. So we've done it by project, and we'll probably go forward, hopefully doing a specific project, and use that and tout some of the economic development capacity for that. And maybe other cities will start participating in their medical school via that instead of just writing a check. So it's really important. And then the end result is, I think, the most important part is helps with the health of our community. You know, cervical cancer is a very serious
Right, the funds
illness.
are targeted right towards research of cervical cancer, particularly in Hispanic women.
Sure, and even if it just gets people to go in and get their checkups earlier because of the publicity or because of clinical trials and everything else, I think it enhances our health. So to me, it's a win-win all over the place, and it makes sense. And so I went to the MEDC board and said, I'm giving you, I'd like you to participate. And so I think they're behind it because it's economic development. So we'll see how all that develops, but I think it's important. I get the monthly magazine from UT San Antonio, the medical school up there doing great things, and there's no reason why we can't do great things here. If you take a look at it, we got 1.2 million people, almost what they have up there, so I think our capacity's tremendous for growth, and I'm excited about it, and hopefully we'll do more projects.
I like the way you think that even if one female, goes to go get a checkup sooner, then that's already a win for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other things we look for is, the research centers in the South Dove campus. We already have the major family practice resident program in South McAllen campus, the South Dove campus, I call it. We have the residence villages, and so they live there, so they get a taste of McAllen. And there's a new multi-specialty clinics open up, and hopefully some announcements later on are even bigger and better. And the idea doesn't have to be in McAllen, but I'd like to be in McAllen. And I think it's important that we have to have a presence. When we did the $2 million pledge, I said, here's what I want. Well, at the time, administrative building was a big thing. I'd rather have research, and we got the research building here.
Right.
Administrative building, it'd be nice if it'd be here, and then supposedly it's going to start.
We could welcome the administrative building too.
The master's program turned into PhD programs in South McAllen, and then industrial research, which they're supposed to be doing. And so they have a building down there still working on trying to get them to staff it. So presence in McAllen University is great, and I think Guy Bailey's doing a good job of trying to make sure that there's a presence all over the valley. But I'm the mayor of McAllen, and we're McAllen, so of course we want our part here. And I think the research building is a huge step to that.
Excellent. Okay, and lastly today, recently we had the Vice President of the United States in McAllen. So tell us about that.
Well, I think the trip is the typical trip, with the Border Patrol and ICE to see the detention center and the river and the border, get a taste for what the border is like. You really can't. And hopefully he goes away with the impression that it's, we already have a border. Unlike California and Arizona and West Texas, there is no border. It's just desert, and so where is the border? Well, except for a post someplace. But so there's a fence that defines a border. We have a border. It's the river.
Yeah, we have a border.
I don't want us to establish another border. I think border protection is really important. I think in some places a fence or a wall may make, but surely not across the border, and especially when it's displacing our existing border, which is a relatively good deterrent. I mean, you still got to go across the Rio Grande River, I mean, which is not an easy task to do. Hopefully when they take a look at it, border protection doesn't mean establishing a brand new border, because we have one. And I'm confident that that message gets sent to Washington. And when you talk about Border Patrol, they need a whole bunch of different things, because you can go around, under, through fences, so you better have the mechanisms when they do come across for legal purposes that you can respond to it. And so just building a wall doesn't get there. I think the Border Patrol's idea is to try to funnel them to the extent where it's easy to catch them. And I think we have to look at foreign policy of why they're coming over, because it's not really Mexicans coming over. The economy in Mexico and NAFTA has really strengthened those. So those are Central Americans.
Right. Which is the influx that we've seen already for years.
The last thing we want, when all the coverage with the Vice President's visit is the result of all this coverage is going to be we're not safe and sound. So.
All right. Mayor Jim Darley, thank you so much for being with us in the studio. And we thank you for watching this edition of Meeting with the Mayor for the City of McAllen. I'm Roxanne Lerma.